For decades, it looked untouchable. A monopoly so powerful that governments feared it, competitors hated it, and ordinary people barely noticed it. It didn't sell weapons. It didn't control oil. It didn't run banks. It controlled something far more basic. Something every household depended on, every business needed, and every city was built around. Ice. And before electricity, ice meant power. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, the global ice trade was one of the largest and most profitable industries on Earth. Massive corporations harvested ice from frozen lakes, shipped it across continents, and sold it at prices they controlled. In major cities, a single ice company often owned everything: ice houses, delivery wagons, storage facilities, and exclusive contracts with hotels, hospitals, meat markets, and breweries. This wasn't competition. This was control. If you lived in a big city, you didn't choose your ice supplier. Your ice supplier chose you. Families depended on daily ice deliveries to keep food from rotting. Hospitals depended on ice to preserve medicine and organs. Breweries, butcher shops, fish markets, entire industries would collapse without it. Ice wasn't a luxury, it was survival, and the companies that controlled it knew that very well. Prices were fixed. Supplies were manipulated. During heatwaves, prices mysteriously rose. During labor strikes, ice deliveries stopped overnight. If a small competitor tried to enter the market, their ice wagons were blocked, their storage houses denied access, their workers threatened. Some cities had only one ice company, and that company behaved like a king. Newspapers of the time openly called them ice barons. At the top of this frozen empire were corporations that had mastered logistics long before the word existed. They harvested natural ice in winter, cutting massive blocks from lakes and rivers using industrial saws. These blocks were stored in insulated warehouses packed with sawdust and straw, designed to slow melting. Then, throughout the year, the ice was distributed with military precision. Horse-drawn wagons moved through cities at dawn. Every household had an icebox, and every icebox had a slot for the daily block. People structured their lives around ice delivery schedules. And here's the most important part. No one imagined this system could ever disappear. Ice had existed forever. Cold had always come from nature. The idea that cold could be manufactured, on demand, inside your home, sounded like science fiction. That belief is exactly what made the monopoly blind. Because while the ice barons were busy squeezing profits, something strange was happening in laboratories, workshops, and obscure engineering journals. Not in the streets, not in the markets, quietly, invisibly, engineers were experimenting with artificial refrigeration, not to replace ice, but to assist it. Early machines were huge, loud, dangerous, and unreliable. They leaked toxic gases. They exploded. They cost fortunes to run. The ice companies laughed. Why would anyone trust a machine when nature delivered ice for free every winter? But innovation doesn't ask for permission. By the early 1900s, refrigeration technology began creeping into industries that the ice monopoly considered safe. Breweries started installing mechanical cooling to control fermentation more precisely. Meatpacking plants realized artificial refrigeration allowed year-round slaughter instead of seasonal operations. Cold storage warehouses began using machines to stabilize temperatures rather than relying on melting blocks. The ice companies didn't panic. They didn't adapt. They didn't invest seriously. To them, refrigeration wasn't a threat. It was a niche tool for factories, not homes. Ordinary families would never want a noisy machine in their kitchens. That was the assumption. It was the most expensive mistake in their history. Because monopolies survive on predictability. And refrigeration destroyed predictability. Electricity spread rapidly in cities after World War I. What once powered streetlights and factories now entered homes. At first, it was used for lighting and fans. Then radios. Then, something unexpected. A new appliance began appearing in trade fairs and catalogs. Small, box-shaped, clean, quiet. A machine that could keep food cold without daily deliveries. The refrigerator. Early models were expensive, unreliable, and still dangerous. Some used toxic refrigerants like ammonia or sulfur dioxide. Accidents happened. People died. The ice industry seized on these stories, spreading fear through newspapers and advertisements. Mechanical cold kills, some headlines implied. Ice was natural. Ice was safe. But engineers kept refining the machines. Safer refrigerants, better compressors, smaller designs, and the price slowly dropped. Meanwhile, urban life was changing. Women were entering the workforce. Daily ice deliveries became inconvenient. People wanted independence. They wanted food to last longer. They wanted control over their kitchens. The fridge didn't arrive like a revolution. It arrived like a convenience. And convenience is lethal to monopolies. By the 1920s, middle-class households began installing refrigerators. Not many at first, just enough to matter. Ice consumption started declining, but subtly. Ice companies blamed weather patterns. Then blamed the economy. Then blamed labor costs. They still didn't see the real enemy. Because the refrigerator didn't just replace ice. It destroyed the entire system built around it. No deliveries. No storage houses. No seasonal harvesting. No price fixing during heatwaves. No dependence. Once cold became something you produced yourself, the monopoly lost its grip overnight. And when the ice barons finally understood what was happening, it was already too late. Their empire wasn't melting, it was evaporating. When the ice barons finally realized something was wrong, their first instinct wasn't innovation. It was denial. Sales reports showed small but consistent declines. Ice deliveries were being skipped. Storage warehouses were holding excess inventory. For an industry built on precise seasonal planning, even a small disruption was alarming. But monopolies rarely admit weakness. Instead, executives blamed everything except the truth. They blamed unusually warm winters. They blamed urban migration patterns. They blamed labor unions. They blamed temporary consumer fads. The refrigerator, they insisted, was a novelty. So they did what monopolies always do when threatened by change: they tried to crush it. Ice companies launched aggressive propaganda campaigns. Newspapers were flooded with stories about refrigerator accidents, explosions, poison gas leaks, children supposedly killed in their sleep by invisible fumes. Some of these incidents were real. Many were exaggerated. A few were outright fabricated. The message was simple: artificial cold was dangerous. Natural ice was safe, pure, and time-tested. Advertisements showed smiling families around iceboxes, contrasting them with dark, mechanical refrigerators depicted as unstable machines. Ice wasn't just a product anymore. It was tradition. It was trust. It was morality. Behind the scenes, ice companies pressured city governments to regulate refrigeration units more strictly. They lobbied for safety inspections, licensing requirements, and zoning restrictions that made installing a fridge expensive and bureaucratic. In some cities, early refrigerators were effectively banned from apartment buildings due to fire and gas concerns. But here's the problem with fighting technology using fear: fear fades. Convenience doesn't. As refrigerators improved, accident rates dropped sharply. New refrigerants like Freon eliminated many of the early dangers. Units became quieter, smaller, and more reliable. The refrigerator stopped being a risky experiment and became an appliance. And once that happened, the ice monopoly faced a threat it had never prepared for: choice. For the first time, consumers could opt out of the system entirely. No more waiting for the ice man. No more spoiled food when deliveries were late. No more bargaining over prices during heatwaves. A refrigerator didn't care about strikes, weather, or monopolies. It just worked. The ice companies tried to adapt, but they were structurally incapable of it. Their entire business model depended on scale, logistics, and control of physical infrastructure. Refrigeration required engineering, electronics, and manufacturing, fields they didn't understand and had spent decades ignoring. Partnering with refrigerator manufacturers would have meant undermining their own product. Investing in the technology meant admitting defeat. Some companies attempted half measures. They experimented with hybrid systems, selling ice alongside mechanical cooling for commercial clients. Others tried renting refrigeration units while continuing ice deliveries. None of it worked. The economics were brutal. Once a customer installed a refrigerator, ice demand dropped to near zero. Then came the collapse cascade. As household demand fell, ice prices rose to compensate. That pushed even more consumers toward refrigerators. Ice companies cut costs by laying off workers. That led to strikes. Strikes disrupted deliveries, accelerating customer loss. Storage facilities closed. Delivery routes were abandoned. Each failure made the next inevitable. Entire cities lost their ice infrastructure in a matter of years. And the human cost was enormous. Thousands of ice workers, harvesters, drivers, warehouse staff, found themselves unemployed. Their skills were specific, physical, and suddenly obsolete. You couldn't retrain an ice cutter to repair compressors overnight. Many families that had relied on the ice trade for generations were wiped out economically. What's most shocking is how fast it happened. An industry that had dominated urban life for nearly a century collapsed in less than 2 decades. By the 1930s, natural ice harvesting had all but disappeared from major cities. Artificial ice production survived briefly, mostly for industrial use, but even that was eventually overtaken by full mechanical refrigeration. The monopoly wasn't broken by courts or revolutions. It was broken by an appliance. A quiet box in the kitchen. And here's the deeper lesson, the one the ice barons never understood. They didn't lose because refrigerators were better at making things cold. They lost because refrigerators removed dependence. Monopolies thrive when people have no alternatives. The fridge didn't compete with ice on price alone. It competed on autonomy. It gave people control over time, food, and daily life. And once people taste independence, they never go back. By the time ice executives acknowledged the truth, their power was already gone. The delivery wagons vanished from streets. Ice houses were demolished or repurposed. Lakes once harvested every winter froze undisturbed again. The world moved on. But the story wasn't over. Because the fall of the ice monopoly didn't just change kitchens, it reshaped entire industries, global supply chains, and how humanity interacted with food itself. The refrigerator didn't just kill a monopoly. It rewired civilization. When the refrigerator finished destroying the ice monopoly, it didn't stop there. It kept going. What replaced the ice industry wasn't just a new product, it was a completely new way of living. Cold was no longer seasonal. It was constant, predictable, portable, and that single change reshaped the global food system more dramatically than any war or political revolution of the 20th century. Before refrigeration, food was local by necessity. Meat had to be consumed quickly. Milk spoiled within hours. Fruits and vegetables followed strict seasonal cycles. Cities depended on nearby farms, and shortages were common. Famine wasn't just a rural problem, it haunted urban life too. Refrigeration erased those limits. Cold storage warehouses expanded rapidly, no longer relying on ice blocks but on continuous mechanical cooling. Meat could be slaughtered in one place and eaten thousands of miles away. Fish could be caught at sea and sold days later. Dairy could be stored, transported, and standardized. This wasn't convenience. This was industrial transformation. Supermarkets emerged as a direct result. The idea of walking into a single building and buying fresh meat, frozen goods, dairy, and produce year-round would have been unthinkable without refrigeration. Entire retail empires were built on cold. Supply chains stretched across continents. Farmers adjusted crops to storage and transport, not just climate. Food became global, and with that came power. Just as ice companies once controlled access to cold, new monopolies formed around refrigeration infrastructure, appliance manufacturers, logistics giants, cold chain distributors. But here's the difference. These systems were modular, competitive, and constantly improving. No single company could lock down cold the way ice barons once had. Why? Because technology had crossed a threshold. The refrigerator was not a centralized service. It was a decentralized tool. Once it entered homes, power shifted permanently. Cold stopped being rented and started being owned. That shift echoed across industries. Medical science advanced rapidly with reliable refrigeration. Vaccines could be stored. Blood banks became possible. Organ transplants moved from fantasy to reality. Hospitals no longer depended on daily ice deliveries to function. Modern medicine was built on cold, and cold was built on the fridge. Even culture changed. Leftovers became normal. Weekly grocery shopping replaced daily market trips. Diets diversified. Urban life accelerated. Time itself felt different when food no longer dictated your schedule. And yet, the most important impact of the refrigerator wasn't technical. It was psychological. People learned a new lesson, one that monopolies fear more than regulation or competition. They learned that essential systems could change. For generations, ice felt eternal. It felt natural. It felt immune to disruption. The ice monopoly survived because no one questioned its existence. And then, suddenly, it was gone. Not because it was outlawed. Not because it was defeated in court. But because it was made irrelevant. That's the true power of innovation. The ice barons didn't lose because they were evil. They lost because they confused dominance with permanence. They believed scale was protection. They believed infrastructure was invincibility. They believed the future would look like the past. It never does. And that's why this story still matters today. Every modern monopoly believes it's different. Tech giants, energy empires, data platforms. They all claim their systems are too big, too embedded, too essential to fail. But the ice monopoly was once all of those things. Until a box in the kitchen rewrote the rules. The refrigerator didn't announce itself as a revolution. It didn't threaten. It didn't overthrow. It simply offered a better way, and waited. And when people chose it, the old world collapsed quietly. No riots, no headlines, just empty warehouses and forgotten delivery routes. History doesn't always end with explosions. Sometimes, it ends with a hum. The low, steady hum of a refrigerator running in the background, doing what an empire once charged fortunes to do. That's how the fridge destroyed one of the world's largest monopolies.